Hi everyone, and thank you for being with me. I'm going to talk today about a subject which has been of some concern to me for some time, and you've probably seen some of my posts in relation to conspiracy theorists, what I actually think of them, whether they have any value, and whether we need to be afraid of them, or at least afraid of the potential that they hold if they move further and further to the extreme right. But in all of my efforts, I've wanted to understand them, wanted to comprehend a little bit more about where conspiracy theorists come from, what are their values, and why they do believe whatever it is that they choose to believe. Now, there was an article in The Guardian which attracted my attention today, and it was in relation to a bloke by the name of Brent Lee. Not to be confused with Brett Lee, the Australian cricketer. But, however, Brent Lee was a conspiracy theorist for many, many years, but has since turned away from the dark side and come to realise that there's another way of viewing the world which is not about conspiracy theories. And he has a podcast, I believe, which talks about conspiracy theories in general and why it is that people choose to believe some of these bizarre and wonderful theories. So I wanted to just cite this article, and certainly not to have a go at conspiracy theorists. That is not the point of this conversation. What I want to do is highlight the reasons why some people may choose to believe conspiracy theorists, and not necessarily to convert anybody either. If you choose to believe in conspiracy theories, as far as I'm concerned, so be it. Just don't do anything that is harmful or disrespectful of another person. That's all I ask. But believe whatever belief you want to believe. As I've often said, if you believe in crystals and that seems to work for you, so be it. You believe in God and that works for you, so be it. But don't try and push those beliefs on other people when they're not ready for them, or simply because some of those beliefs simply are not born of any factual nature whatsoever. So I just want to have a look at this article that here in the Guardian in relation to Brent's reason for leaving the conspiracy theories behind him. So it's called "Escape from the Rabbit Hole: The Conspiracy Theorist Who Abandoned His Dangerous Beliefs." Now, to be fair, I'm not, as I said earlier, I'm not here to convince you that you should not be a conspiracy theorist. I think there's plenty of reasons for us to believe certain beliefs, whether it be the Bible, whether it be the Quran, whether it be whatever. Believe what you need to believe, but don't believe stuff that is grounded in misinformation, that is untrue at its very core, and which creates for the individual often a dilemma in terms of their own mental well-being, how they view themselves in relation to the rest of the world. And one of the issues I have primarily in relation to conspiracy theorists is the damage they do to themselves, because they believe in a world which doesn't exist. But nevertheless, that's what they want to believe in. So in this article, Brent says here, Brent Lee struggles to explain why he used to believe that a cabal of evil satanic pedophiles were working to establish a new world order. He pauses, looks sheepishly and says, "I cringe at all of this now." For 15 years, Lee collected signs that so-called Illuminati overlords were controlling global events. He convinced himself that secret societies were running politics, banks, religious institutions, and the entertainment industry, and that most terrorist attacks were actually government-organised ritual sacrifices. Now, when I watch David Campbell on Stop the Rot, Sack the Lot, which I've said before is a very entertaining show, actually. If you want to laugh, you want to see what the crazies are doing in this world, well, have a look. But when I look at what things they say, this is what they're saying. So this was that paragraph summarises the very thing that I notice in relation to conspiracy theorists and the basis from which they develop their theories. So the theory primarily is that there's a cabal that which is usually run by Democrats, left-wing people, and you'll hear them talk about who the politicians are that are running this cabal. So the likes of Bob Hawke and Whitlam and usually left-leaning politicians are all party to this cabal. And so they're involved in ritual sacrifices, so they're stealing children, raping children, skinning them of their flesh and wearing their flesh, and some most ridiculous, drinking their blood, and a whole lot of the worst possible concepts that one could possibly imagine. It goes on to say he was also inclined to believe in UFOs and that Stanley Kubrick staged and directed the filming of the moon landing. These are often conspiracy beliefs. He saw satanic symbols in the London 2012 Olympics opening ceremony and spent most of his time discussing these theories with an online community of fellow believers. But in 2018, something shifted, and he began to find a new wave of conspiracy theories increasingly implausible. I was sick of it, he said. I felt I can't deal with hearing this anymore because it's no longer what I believe, so I just logged off the internet. And he talks a little bit later about Alex Jones and how when he got to the Alex Jones stuff in relation to the children that were killed at that school, Stony Hook, whatever it was called, it was there that he started to realise that he just cannot believe some of these beliefs anymore. His reasons for abandoning, so I'm just reading this bit here, his reasons for abandoning the truth movement. Truthers believe official accounts of big events are designed to conceal the truth from the public, are also hard to slot into a conventional worldview. Lee veers between feeling ashamed and amused by his own convictions, while also pointing out that it would be a mistake to dismiss these ideas with an impatient eye roll because they are very dangerous. And I agree with that some of these ideas are going to conjure up, for some people, actions which will affect other people, innocent people often. Versions of the same ideas gained greater currency in the years since he stepped away from them. In the US, for example, there was the QAnon stuff, from the fringes of the mainstream, and social media has been flooded with the group's misinformation. A 2020 Ipsos poll found that 17% of Americans believe that a group of Satan-worshipping elites who run a child sex ring are trying to control our politics and media. I know that's crap, but there are many people out there that actually do believe that. There's a point here where I'm trying to find it now. This is a bit. So what made him vulnerable? Now that's a really interesting question, I think. And I'll just read this bit to you because I think this is imperative that at least we understand what can make people vulnerable. And when I look at some of the people that are involved in these conspiracy theories, I do see a type. Now, that doesn't mean that it's all of them. That there are people that hold these conspiracy theories that are well educated and so forth. So it isn't a one thing fits all. It's the way sometimes I perceive them, and I'm wrong, I think, on many occasions. But what made him vulnerable? Partly he blames his education. I wasn't taught how to assess information or how to do research, which I find really interesting given that so many conspiracy theorists will say, do the research. So you do the research in the areas inside that bubble that interests you and interests you alone, and that confirms your beliefs. You don't do research outside of that to disprove whatever that theory is, which is what research really is about. He has a disrupted education, first at a US high school on the Frankfurt military base where he spent much of his childhood with his English mother and American stepfather. who was serving in the US Air Force, later at a college in England from which he was expelled for smoking weed and started playing in a band. He spent hours on music production on his computer and developed sophisticated internet skills at a time when most people were barely online. This gave him early access to sites run by conspiracy theorists such as David Icke. Soon he was spending 9 hours at a stretch consuming truther content online. His family, I like this bit, his family and fellow band members were bored by his obsessions, and he gradually withdrew to focus on online friendships with people who were also ready to believe that the Illuminati and Freemasons had infiltrated global governments. And that's what I noticed. So I noticed two things that I reckon are happening. Number one is that many of the people that you see online talking conspiracy theorists do not understand what research is. Research is simply not looking up something that supports your idea. It's about looking up things which present a different view of what it is that you may believe and challenges your views in that area. But conspiracy theorists will look just to that one particular area. And also, the conspiracy theorists work within their own bubble. So when I watch Stop the Rot, Sack the Lot on Facebook, I noticed that they are all talking about the same thing. And if you came in and attempted to challenge them in any way, they will pull the plug on you. They'll say that you're a moron, you're crazy, you're stupid. They'll call you names, disrespectful names, I hasten to add, and they will pull the plug on you. So they don't want to have to listen to other ideas. And I think that one of the problems that we have with conspiracy theorists is that, number one, is often we can't change their views. They're so locked into this bubble. They're not like Brent and decide that they're sick of it all and want to try and find an alternative. They're locked in that way of thinking. They're not going to shift no matter what you do or say. He's spent months building an alternative explanation for the attacks and disseminating his theories through his blog. I'm ashamed of putting so many lies out there. I didn't mean to lie. I just had the wrong picture. He maintains this came from a good place. And I'll just explain this in a moment. I wanted to find the real people who had organised the attacks. He's talking about the 7/7 attacks in London in 2005. But I was wrong, and it took away guilt from the real perpetrators, people who did something atrocious. And I think this is one of the key issues, and they talk about this later in the article, is that we want to consider conspiracy theorists are right in terms of they don't trust governments. And there's many of us who aren't conspiracy theorists who are doubtful about the motives of politicians and public servants and governments in general, and there's plenty of evidence to suggest that we need to be wary of what it is that they say and do. Robo-debt here in Australia is a good example of that. There are many other examples around the world where we need to be cautious about. So that cautiousness that we have in our mindset needs to be focused. And the reality is that when we're cautious, we can question things. But we don't necessarily have to jump down the rabbit hole in order to do so. And I think that many people in the conspiracy theory world want to find that rabbit hole to start with rather than just questioning what actually is happening. So when you get people going to court, for example, the sovereign citizens jump up and they start talking about their rights as a person, and that if they're picked up on the road, they're only travellers. And so there's all these bizarre beliefs, and they believe in maritime law, not the real law. And so they're really way out there, and they're disconnected with reality. And those people are less likely to come back and look at things in a rational way. That I've seen a lot of conspiracy theorists stand in front of courts, calling judges and police pedophiles, making the most bizarre accusations of people they don't know, and that they don't understand their background or anything about the people they're accusing of being pedophiles, but because they sit into this category of government or authority or the justice system, then for some reason they are. I just wanted to quote what Naomi Klein says here, just blows, because I think this is really important. Naomi Klein examines the mushrooming of conspiracism in her new book, Doppelganger, noting that people often come under its sway because they are searching for a practical solution to a sense of unfairness. Conspiracists have a fantasy of justice, hoping that the evil-doing elites can be arrested and stopped. Conspiracy theorists get the facts wrong, but often get the feelings right. And that I agree with 100%. Their motives are right. Their facts are wrong. Oh, sorry, I should have had this up on the screen. So conspiracy theorists get the facts wrong, but often get the feelings right, she writes. The feelings that every human misery is someone else's profit. The feeling that important truths are being hidden. She quotes digital journalist scholar Marcus Gilroy Ware's conclusion that conspiracy theories are a misfiring of a healthy and justifiable political instinct, suspicion. And I have to confess, I agree with that. That we need to be suspicious of what people are doing and saying and wonder about their motives in doing so as well. And as a result, we need to find a way to confront and to verify our suspicions, because our suspicions may be totally wrong for that matter. But at the end of the day, we need to be able to feel comfortable with the decisions that we've made in terms of our suspicions. So when COVID triggered, this will probably cover the whole lot, no it won't. When COVID triggered a popularity surge of conspiracy theorists, Lee was also done with it and simply noted that if there really was a global movement working to establish a new world order through the pandemic, they were going... I forgot to put the screen on him. They were going about it in a strikingly ill-coordinated and muddled manner. The governments were acting in lockstep with each other. There was no well-oiled machine. It was organised. No one was in charge. So one of the lessons I think that need to be learned from this is that simply in Lee's case, if you spend a lot of time online and you disassociate yourself with other people who think differently, you're likely to get locked into that one way of thinking, that it governs you, that it manipulates your thought processes to a point whereby you can't think of anything else. It's all there is. And this is what I notice about conspiracy theories, is that everything is a conspiracy. For most things, we need to be suspicious. But it doesn't mean that everything is a conspiracy. And it certainly doesn't mean that the elite, the politicians and those other people that are in government are pedophiles, or they belong to the Illuminati, or that they're Masons, that they're controlling things. These are old age beliefs which are no longer relevant today, never have been relevant anyway, but which are adopted by QAnon and conspiracy theorists to try and justify their own sense of suspicion and fear. So let me know what you think of all of that. If you're a conspiracy theorist, love to hear from you. Actually, if you believe in some of these conspiracy theories, I'd love to have you be interviewed on my channel and have a conversation with you, as to, not to attack you by any means, but just to try and understand where you're coming from and why, and where your beliefs, what's the genesis, I guess, for your beliefs. So thanks everybody for being with me. Take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.